Welcome to The Explainer. I'm going to be your court historian today, and we are diving headfirst into an epic chronicle of the Muvandar. This is the legendary triumvirate of the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas. We're talking about going back over 2 millennia to an era of just staggering wealth, absolutely fierce land battles, and a level of cultural brilliance that literally shaped the history of the subcontinent. So let's jump right in.
Now, you might be wondering just how rich these kingdoms actually were. Well, check out this quote from the Greek ambassador Megasthenes. Foreign envoys like him and later writers in texts like the Periplus were just completely blown away by the wealth of these southern shores. Megasthenes explicitly calls out their fame for pearls and, intriguingly, notes that Pandyan society was matriarchal. It really goes to show how globally renowned and incredibly unique this region was in the ancient world.
Okay, here's our game plan for today to make sure you master these facts, especially if you're gearing up for your UPSC exams. We're going to cover the Pillars of the South, the Chola Navy, the Chera Coastal Guardians, the Pandyan Pearl Masters, the Calabria Transition, and wrap it all up with a quick Movender study quiz. Let's start with Part 1, Pillars of the South, an overview of the Great Triumvirate. I want you to take a second and really commit this master comparison chart to memory. It's your ultimate key to the geopolitical map of the era. You've got the Cheras over in modern-day Kerala, ruling from Vanji with their bow and arrow emblem. Then the Cholas in Tamil Nadu at Urayur, marked by the fierce tiger. And finally the Pandyas down in Madurai, represented by the fish. Keep these regions and ports in mind because they are the foundation for everything we're about to discuss. Moving on to Part 2, the Cholas, the mighty navy and masters of the Coromandel coast.
So we kick things off with the Cholas, who ruled the Kaveri Delta. Originally, their capital was at Urayur, which was famous for a super lucrative inland cotton trade. But here's the absolute game changer. The Cholas weren't just land-based farmers or conquerors. They built a massive, incredibly efficient navy that completely dominated the Bay of Bengal. I mean, their ships sailed as far as the mouth of the Ganga, the Irrawaddy, and even the Malay archipelago. And they took all that immense wealth and used it to aggressively patronize court poets. We're talking rewards of cash, gold, land, and, get this, even live elephants.
This all brings us to the legendary King Kadikalan. Look at the monumental steps of his reign. He strategically moved the royal capital right to the bustling port of Puhar to maximize that maritime trade. Militarily, the guy was a tactical genius. He actually defeated a massive combined army of Cheras, Pandyas, and 11 Velar chieftains at the historic Battle of Eni. But he wasn't just a warrior. Kadikalan was a visionary engineer. He converted dense forests into habitable land and built the colossal Kilani Dam, the Grand Anikud, right across the Kaveri River, totally revolutionizing local agriculture.
All right, Part 3, the Cheras, Western Coastal Guardians and rulers of Kerala and the Kongu region.
Let's travel over to the opposite coast. The Chera kings quickly realized that to survive economically, they absolutely had to protect their trade routes from pirates and foreign merchants, known as the Yavanas. They struck a brilliant balance. On one hand, they controlled extremely sought-after western ports like Mujiri and Tondi. On the other hand, they went on the offensive against piracy. King Sengutuvan famously protected Mujiri by completely crushing the Kadamba pirates, which earned him the epic title Kadal Piraka Hiye. And check out how their international relations evolved on this timeline. Early on, their kings were ruling at the same time as the mighty Satavahanas up north. But by the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, we see this massive economic shift. They moved completely away from a basic barter economy and started issuing copper and lead currency. What's wild is that they explicitly imitated Roman coin designs, which just proves the massive impact Roman gold and Roman merchants had on local markets. And they didn't stop at Rome. By the late 2nd century, King Singatuvan initiated the very first South Indian diplomatic mission straight to the Chinese Empire.
But it wasn't all just money and swords for the Cheras. They deeply shaped regional culture. King Sengutuvan actually introduced the Patni cult in Tamil Nadu. This religious movement venerated Kannagi, the tragic heroine from the famous epic Silappadigaram. And here is a fun fact. The author of that epic, Ilango Adigal, was actually an ascetic prince from the Chera royal family itself. It perfectly shows how seamlessly state power, religious patronage, and incredible poetry blended to elevate the status of the royal court.
Section 4. The Pandyas, Masters of Pearls and the Wealth of Madurai.
Heading down to the deep south, the Pandyas commanded an empire that was essentially built on pearls, poetry, and prestige. Ruling from their capital in Madurai, they basically monopolized the luxury maritime market. Their port of Korkai was a global hotspot, internationally famous for pearl fisheries and shank diving. They also managed massive imports of war horses by sea. Their grip on luxury trade was so vital to the ancient global economy that they were sending diplomatic embassies directly to the Roman Emperor Augustus himself.
So, what do you do with all that pearl money? Well, the Pandyas brilliantly leveraged it to fund an unstoppable military force. You can see the direct link here. The immense riches generated by Roman trade at key ports like Nalkinda and Korkai directly funded their military dominance. King Ndunja Jahian is the prime example. He used these massive resources to crush a combined army of Cheras, Cholas, and 5 Valir chieftains at the incredible Battle of Talayalanganam. Talk about an ancient flex. Let's look at this fascinating piece of physical evidence showing how Pandyan kings used customized currency. King Padagashalai Mudigudumi Peruvajuti, who was a formidable warrior and a major patron of poetry, actually minted special coins bearing his own name. Why? Just to commemorate his performance of Vedic sacrifices. It's a textbook example of using the shift to a currency market, not just for buying and selling, but as literal royal propaganda you could carry in your pocket. Now for part 5, the Calabra transition, reevaluating the post-Sangam era. Okay, so what happens when the golden age of the Movender declines around 300 AD? For a long time, history totally misunderstood this period. We have to discard the outdated Dark Age myth you see on the left. Orthodox Vedic scholars labeled it an interregnum simply because those 3 traditional kings vanished and Jain and Buddhist influences started to grow. But the modern, much more accurate historical view, it was a highly dynamic transition. It was a vital bridge period that actually birthed larger, more complex state societies. Spanning from roughly 300 to 600 AD, the Calabra period was incredibly fertile ground for culture. That massive influx of Jainism and Buddhism produced some of the greatest Tamil literary masterpieces of all time. We're talking about the Tirukural, the Silapathikaram, and the Manimekalai. Sure, they were eventually overthrown by a resurgent Pandya dynasty in the mid-6th century, but their cultural footprint was permanently stamped onto South India. Finally, Part 6, the Move and R Study Quiz. Let's test your UPSC knowledge. All right, let's see what you've retained. Think back to our master comparison chart from the beginning. Which kingdom utilized the tiger emblem, ruled from Urayor, and transformed the Kaveri Delta into an agricultural powerhouse by building the Grand Kilanai Dam under King Karikalan? Take a second. You got it? Boom. If you said the Cholas, you hit the nail on the head. That shows a solid grasp of their unique economic and engineering focus. It was their unmatched naval might, that highly lucrative inland cotton trade, and vital infrastructure projects that truly made them an enduring regional superpower. Before we wrap up, if you are studying for the UPSC, you're going to want to take a mental screenshot of this ultimate study guide summary. It perfectly recaps how each dynasty uniquely converted trade, poetry, and warfare into lasting authority. You got the Cholas with their naval dominance, the Cheras with those vital Western ports and Roman coin imitations, the Pandyas with their pearl trade and direct embassies to Augustus, and of course, the Calabras representing that crucial cultural transition. I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Knowing that these ancient kings forged maritime trade links stretching all the way from Rome to China, how heavily do you think the Movadar's maritime routes still dictate the flow of modern global commerce today? It is absolutely incredible to think about the enduring, real-world legacy of ancient South India. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep exploring.